Have you ever sat down to meditate, closed your eyes, and within about 3 seconds found yourself thinking about what you need to buy at the grocery store? And then you catch yourself, feel like you failed, and spend the next 10 minutes alternating between trying to focus and mentally writing your shopping list? Welcome to Mind Decoded. I'm Dr. Ann.
And I'm Zach. Dr. Ann, I have a confession to make. I have tried to meditate so many times, and every single time I end up feeling like I'm just terrible at it. Like my brain is broken, like everyone else has this calm, peaceful inner world, and mine is just a chaotic web of to-do lists and random song lyrics.
Zach, what you just described is not a sign that you are bad at meditation. It is the most accurate description of what meditation actually feels like for almost every human being on the planet. And here is the fascinating part. That moment when you notice your mind has wandered and you bring it back, that single moment is the entire workout. That is where the brain change happens.
Wait, so you are telling me that the part I thought was failure is actually the point?
Exactly. And this is not just a feel good reframe. This is grounded in some of the most compelling neuroscience research of the last 20 years. We know now that meditation does not just make you feel calmer in the moment, it physically changes the structure of your brain. And those changes happen precisely because of the struggle you just described.
So the struggle is the point. That is going to take me a minute, but okay, let's get into the science. What actually happens inside your brain when you meditate?
Let me paint you a picture. You close your eyes and you try to focus on your breath. Your brain's prefrontal cortex, which is the part behind your forehead responsible for attention and decision making, it activates. It is trying to hold your attention on that breath. But your default mode network, which is a network of brain regions that activates when your mind is wandering, daydreaming, thinking about the past or future, that network is also active, and it is fighting for your attention. So you have this battle happening in your brain. The prefrontal cortex is saying, stay on the breath. The default mode network is saying, hey, remember that embarrassing thing you said in a meeting 3 years ago? Let's replay that.
Oh no, my default mode network is very strong. It loves to replay embarrassing moments from 2017.
And this is exactly where it gets interesting. The first major study that showed meditation actually changes brain structure came from Sarah Lazar's lab at Harvard in 2011. Her team took MRI scans of people who meditated regularly and compared them to people who did not. What they found was remarkable. The meditators had increased gray matter density in several key brain regions. The prefrontal cortex was thicker. The hippocampus, which is critical for learning and memory, was also larger, and the amygdala, which is your brain's fear and stress center, was smaller.
Wait, so the part of the brain that makes me stressed actually shrinks?
In people who meditate consistently, yes. And here's the key finding that really stopped me when I first read this. The changes in brain structure were correlated with the total number of hours of practice, but not in the way you might assume. It was not about how many hours someone had meditated over their lifetime. It was about how much they practiced the noticing and returning. The frequency of that catch and return cycle predicted the brain changes more than the total time spent in meditation.
So it is not about being good at staying focused. It is about how many times you catch yourself wandering and bring yourself back.
That is exactly right. And this is beautifully demonstrated in another study. Britta Herozol and her team at Harvard did a study where they had participants go through an 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction program. They took MRI scans before and after. After just 8 weeks, participants showed measurable changes in gray matter concentration in the same regions. The prefrontal cortex, the hippocampus, and the amygdala showed decreased gray matter density.
So in 8 weeks, your brain physically changes.
In 8 weeks of practice. And remember, these were beginners. Many of them had never meditated before, and they were not spending hours a day. They were practicing about 30 minutes a day, and their brains changed.
Okay, I need to sit with this for a second. So my brain, which I thought was just this fixed organ that I was stuck with, can actually reshape itself based on what I do regularly. That is huge.
This is the concept of neuroplasticity, and it is one of the most hopeful findings in all of modern psychology. Your brain is not static, it changes in response to your experience. Every time you practice something, you are literally strengthening the neural pathways involved, and the pathways you do not use, they get pruned away. It is like a forest. The trails that get walked on frequently become clear, easy paths. The ones that are rarely used grow over and disappear.
So meditation is like walking the same trail over and over until it becomes the default path instead of the overgrown one.
Exactly, and the specific trail you are walking every time you meditate is the one from the prefrontal cortex to the attention centers, and the one that regulates the amygdala. You are training your brain to notice when it has been hijacked by stress or distraction, and then choose where to place your attention instead.
This is making me think about something. I have a friend who has been meditating for years, and she is the calmest person I know. But she told me once that her mind still wanders constantly. I always assumed she was just being modest.
No, she is telling you the truth. Experienced meditators still have wandering minds. The difference is not that their minds become empty. The difference is that they notice the wandering earlier and return more quickly. The skill being trained is not sustained focus without interruption. The skill is the speed of noticing and the ease of returning.
So, the goal is not to stop your mind from wandering. The goal is to get better at noticing it happens and coming back.
You nailed it, and this is actually what the neuroscientist Amishi Jha calls the flashlight of attention. She studies mindfulness in high-stress populations like military personnel and athletes. Her research shows that even brief mindfulness training can improve attention and working memory under high-stress conditions, not by making people immune to distraction, but by improving their ability to detect distraction early and refocus.
Okay, so the research is clear, but I want to ask you something personal. When you first started studying this, did it change how you thought about your own meditation practice?
Completely. When I first started meditating, I had the same experience you described. I would sit down and my mind would be everywhere. And I thought I was doing it wrong. I thought maybe meditation just was not for me. But then I read this research, and it reframed everything. I realized that every time I noticed my mind wandering and brought it back, I was doing a rep, like a bicep curl for my prefrontal cortex. And the frustration I felt was not a sign of failure. It was a sign that I was working the right muscle.
That is such a different way to think about it. I have tried meditation apps. I have tried guided sessions, and I always end up feeling like I am just not a meditator. But what you are saying is that if I sat there and struggled for 10 minutes and my mind wandered 100 times and I brought it back 100 times, I actually did something meaningful for my brain.
You did 100 reps, and each rep strengthened the neural circuit that helps you regulate your attention and your emotions. That is not failure. That is a workout.
I feel like I need to apologize to my brain for all the times I told it it was bad at meditating.
Your brain does not need an apology. It needs more reps. And it needs you to understand that the struggle is not a bug. It is a feature.
Okay, so let's get into the specific brain regions again. You mentioned the prefrontal cortex getting thicker. What does thicker mean in practical terms?
Gray matter density increases in the prefrontal cortex are associated with better executive function. That means improved attention, better decision-making, stronger impulse control. So when you meditate regularly, you are not just getting calm. You are getting better at choosing what to focus on and what to ignore.
And the hippocampus, you said that gets bigger too.
The hippocampus is critical for learning and memory. It is also one of the first regions affected by chronic stress. Stress actually shrinks the hippocampus. So the finding that meditation increases gray matter in the hippocampus is really significant. It suggests that meditation may be protective against the harmful effects of chronic stress on memory and learning.
And the amygdala shrinking. That is the one that fascinates me, because I feel like my amygdala is overactive, like it is constantly scanning for threats even when there are none.
That is a very common experience, and the research shows that after mindfulness training, not only does the amygdala shrink, but the functional connectivity between the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex changes. The prefrontal cortex gets better at regulating the amygdala, so your threat detection system becomes less reactive and your higher level thinking regions get more influence over your emotional responses.
So it is not that the amygdala stops detecting threats, it is that the prefrontal cortex gets better at saying, hey, that is not actually a tiger. It is just an email from your boss.
A perfectly accurate way to describe it.
Let me ask you something that I think a lot of people wonder. Does this mean that people who meditate never get stressed? Because I have met meditators who still get angry, they still get anxious.
Of course they do. Meditation does not eliminate emotions. It changes your relationship to them. The research from Richard Davidson's lab at the University of Wisconsin shows that experienced meditators still have emotional reactions, but they recover from them more quickly. Their physiological response, the heart rate, the cortisol spike, returns to baseline faster. They do not get stuck in the emotional reaction the way someone without training might.
So it is about resilience, the ability to bounce back.
Exactly, and this is where I think the popular understanding of meditation gets it wrong. A lot of people think the goal is to become someone who never feels stressed or angry or sad, but that is not realistic, and it is not the goal. The goal is to become someone who notices when they are stressed, who allows the feeling to be there without adding a story on top of it, and who can then choose a response instead of being driven by the reaction.
Okay, so now I am convinced. But I have one more question, and this is the real one. How do I actually start? Because every time I have tried in the past, I have quit within a week.
Let me give you a practical approach based on the research. Start with 2 minutes a day, not 20, not 10, 2, and use a structure that makes the noticing part explicit. Here is a simple method. Sit comfortably, set a timer for 2 minutes. For the first 30 seconds, just notice the physical sensation of your breath. In, out. Then for the next minute, let your mind do whatever it wants. But here is the key. Every time you notice that your mind has wandered, gently say to yourself, wandering, and then return to your breath. That noticing and labeling is the rep. You want to maximize the number of times you catch yourself and return, not the amount of time you stay focused.
So the goal is to have as many wander and return cycles as possible.
Yes. And here is why this works. In a study from Norman Farb's lab at the University of Toronto, researchers found that the brain actually processes two different kinds of awareness. There is the narrative focus, which is your default mode network, running stories about your life, and there is experiential focus, which is direct sensory awareness of the present moment. What meditation does is strengthen the ability to switch from narrative to experiential mode. And every time you catch yourself in a story and return to the breath, you are practicing that switch.
So I am basically training my brain to get out of storytelling mode and into real-time experience mode.
Yes, and this is why people report that meditation helps with things like rumination, which is getting stuck in repetitive negative thoughts, because you are literally building the neural pathway that lets you notice when you are caught in a thought loop and then step out of it.
Okay, I am going to try this 2 minutes a day, and I am going to actually embrace the wandering instead of fighting it.
That is the mindset shift. And honestly, once you understand this, it changes how you judge yourself for it, because you realize that the wandering is not a sign that you are bad at meditation. It is the raw material of the practice. Without the wandering, there is nothing to notice. And without the noticing, there is no brain change.
That is genuinely beautiful. I think I have been looking at this completely backwards my whole life.
Most people do. And that is one of the reasons I love this research so much. It does not just tell you that meditation works, it tells you why it works. And understanding the why makes the practice itself more meaningful. If you know that every time you catch yourself wandering, your prefrontal cortex and your amygdala are literally changing their structure, that can transform the experience from a frustrating struggle into a fascinating experiment on yourself.
Before we wrap up, I want to ask about something I have heard you mention before. The idea that you can meditate in daily life, not just sitting on a cushion. Is that backed by research?
Absolutely. There is a concept called informal mindfulness practice, and studies have shown that even short moments of mindful awareness throughout the day can produce similar benefits to formal sitting practice. For example, research from the University of California, San Diego showed that people who practiced mindful eating, just paying full attention to the taste and texture of their food for a few minutes, reported lower stress and better emotional regulation.
So I could practice this while I am brushing my teeth, or washing dishes, or walking to the train.
Exactly. You do not need a special cushion or a meditation app. You need two ingredients: intention and attention. You decide to pay full attention to whatever you are doing. And when you notice your mind has wandered, which it will, you gently bring it back. That is it. That is the practice.
I feel like I have been given permission to be bad at meditation, and that permission actually makes me want to try it.
That is a wonderful way to put it, and that is the paradox at the heart of this entire practice. The moment you stop trying to be good at it, you actually start getting the benefits. Because the trying itself, the struggling, the wrestling with your own attention, that is the practice. You cannot do it wrong.
Let me summarize what I am taking away from this episode. Number 1, meditation is not about being calm. It is about training the muscle of noticing and returning. Number 2, the moment you notice your mind wandering is the most valuable part of the practice. Number 3, your brain physically changes when you do this regularly. The prefrontal cortex gets stronger, the amygdala gets less reactive. And number 4, I can start with 2 minutes a day and stop judging myself for having a normal human brain.
That is a perfect summary. And I would add one more thing. The research shows that the benefits of meditation are dose dependent. More practice leads to more change, but even small amounts of consistent practice produce measurable results. So start where you are, 2 minutes a day. And when your mind wanders, celebrate, because you just got a rep in.
Dr. N, this has genuinely changed how I think about something I have struggled with for years. Thank you.
You are welcome, Zach. And to everyone listening, I have one question for you. What would it feel like to stop judging your wandering mind and start seeing it as the gym for your brain? Try it for 2 minutes today. See what happens.
If you want more episodes that explain how your brain actually works, make sure to hit subscribe. We release a new episode every day, and if this episode changed something for you, share it with one person who needs to hear that their monkey mind is actually doing just fine.
Thanks for listening to Mind Decoded. See you next time.
See you next time.